During the first lockdown in the UK, I found myself repeatedly daydreaming about being on a long-haul flight. I'd picture the seat, cramped and restrictive, the headphone socket and the little screen, a tiny airline pillow, several clear plastic wrappers lingering near my feet. I'm sure I'm not unusual in enjoying long plane journeys, and I've had the chance to do this a number of times. Not all journeys of this length are taken by choice, of course, but mine were, flying from one wealthy city to another. This daydream wasn't even about travel, really. It wasn't about getting somewhere. It's not that I find these journeys luxurious or even comfortable, but there is something that feels decadent about this. I think I enjoy the diminution of choice in this particular situation. Which film to watch, which meal to select, when exactly to climb over your neighbour to get to the toilet. This is pretty much the limit of what needs to be decided. You're powerless. I craved all of this. I wondered if this was a strange desire, perverse even in the circumstances. On the one hand, yes, it was something that was impossible at that time, so perhaps there is some logic to pining after it. But as someone mostly working from home in 2020, isn't it a dream of confinement and limitation within an already confined and limited day-to-day reality? Booking a flight makes me feel guilty and responsible for the carbon emissions and the climate crisis and possibly the end of life as we know it. But sometimes I decide to do it anyway. I decide I need to travel, or deserve to. Once you're in there though, there's no further debate. Everything's fine. Or you're in terrible danger, but there's nothing you can do about it. The whole experience is designed to distract and to insulate. It has anesthetic qualities. I often feel powerless to act to change anything in any meaningful way. Is it reassuring somehow to have this made literal? In the pre-COVID world, I sometimes got to choose this particular kind of confinement. This is the first episode of a series called Dreams of Safety. The series is about experiences of disruption and how we think about what went before. We've had many apparently unthinkable breaks from normality in the very recent past, and with each one there seemed a great yearning from many people to go back. Why? Some of the reasons may be obvious, but it also seems clear that a simple return is impossible, and in other ways should be undesirable. Are we even sure what we want to go back to? What does safety look like when everyday realities seem to have been ruptured? At least that's the starting point. Sometimes there is a tendency to universalize experiences of lockdowns and other restrictions. But not everyone was struggling with confinement and working from home. I wanted to speak to someone with a different experience of both the pandemic and of air travel. So I talked to Jimin, a flight attendant based in Hong Kong, who asked to stay anonymous. I asked what she enjoyed about the job ordinarily.
For me, a person who's always been interested in other cultures, other languages, I really enjoyed, traveling around, meeting people, and then I was able to, obtain this very unusual experiences. Pleasant. We had very multicultural environment when we work, like with my team members, with the passengers. But yeah, for a long haul flight like US or European flight, we always have to, deal with those jet lag and everything. So it's definitely not an easy job. Yeah.
Mm.
Like enjoying being a passenger is also one of the reason I can be a flight attendant.
what things do you, because you're a professional, like you have a really detailed understanding of everything that's happening. What do you
Hmm.
what do you tend to notice, or are there differences that you observe between one airline and another?
And I like to observe like mostly crews, like how they work, you know, like how the cabin crew can be observed by a passenger. But well, if I work on the aircraft, I never get that. I never have that chance. So the first stage, Hong Kong was the city where got those like pandemic situation earlier than South Korea. So I think as I remember, that was like February in 2020. So that time when we arrived from Hong Kong to Incheon International Airport, they assigned all the flight arriving from Hong Kong to, on one side of the airport. They blocked the way, and then they're really, really particular with the quarantine, especially with the passengers arriving from Hong Kong and mainland China. And then there was like outbreak in Daegu in March, like late March, and then the situation was the other way. We started to wear face masks because Hong Kong is one of the places where like treat this kind of matters very seriously because they went through SARS. So I mean, luckily the company was quite flexible with this kind of regulation. So we were wearing face masks. And then I remember I traveled down to Sydney. I think it was like February in 2020. And then like whole set of crew were wearing face masks, and then we are going up to the hotel lobby, and all the Australia local people were looking at us because like they heard about this pandemic, but it was like nobody was wearing a face mask except us. So it was really weird. Definitely, I want to go back to flying because I really enjoy my job. I love my company, but I still have to consider many things, like how long it's going to take to be back to normal, like before pandemic. Well, I guess it's not happening, but at least, I have to have a certain a number of flights in a month. That means I can earn some money, right? But for me, it's quite complicated. My situation has been changed a lot. Uh, but to be honest, for me, I think my case is pretty lucky. I miss flying. I miss, you know, like going back to London like 4 or 5 times in a year. But I think I enjoy my job as well, spending hours with passengers on board. And for cabin crew, especially for us, like, I mean, I observe my coworkers who work as a cabin crew, and then we can do this job because natively we love to talk to people.
I wanted to know Jimin's thoughts about the climate crisis and also whether this was spoken about in her part of the airline industry. Were they preparing for other big changes in the years to come?
It's a big issue, everything is something about sustainability at this moment. And especially for me, I studied tourism for my bachelor and master. So it's definitely one of the big issue, whether it can be sustainable or not. And airline is just like you say, it's one of the industry which affect the environment like hugely, right? So I mean, it's quite limited what we can do, but I think it's still crucial. For example, we can still recycle all the materials on board, or we try to minimize, all the trash. And I think at least if we do that, we can do something for, the environment. And
Hmm.
then especially like fuel efficient wise, like there's not much we can do with the as a cabin crew, right? So maybe we try to manage the cabin like on time so we can take off and land like on time, which can save fuel. I don't know. Yeah.
Mm.
So something like that, yeah. But it's definitely very important.
I
Yeah.
know, I know personally some people who have sort of
said, well, maybe I don't need to fly anymore. Maybe I can live in another way.
I think it depends on which country they live in. For example, like South Korea, what kind of option do we have? We have to go to China, we have to get on board. We have to go to Japan, we have to get on board. And North Korea, obviously, like we can travel, so we are kind of like stuck, like an island. So I don't know. For me, well, if I live in South Korea, like stay here just for the entire of my life, I don't know. I may have to move to like one of the European countries so I can travel by train or by car, like which offers me other options. But like in South Korea, it's like no way, just doesn't work.
So I can understand that it makes sense what you're saying, that you would almost have to be a different person without this.
True.
Yeah.
What if they can manage the people's like mental health, which can cause other problems, right? Just because we are not on the flight doesn't mean like people are doing the better things for the nature. I'm sure we're not like that.
Within what Jimin said, I can hear both the urge to return to a pre-COVID world, which she acknowledges might not exist anymore, and the individualization of the problems of the climate crisis. For her airline, it's up to flight attendants to conserve fuel by doing their jobs very efficiently, rather than any larger systemic change being made. In 2020, Nicholas Spice wrote that COVID-19 has broken out of the ghetto, that place where other people die, and has spread to every street in the city. If the capitalist system is to survive, we shall need to go back to our dream of safety, and fast. There's an irony to Spice's phrasing here, of course. Dreams are not real, so maybe our safety isn't real either. But are we capable of waking up? And who are the dreamers? Who is this we, anyway?